Darkness is calling. Are you ready to listen? I'm Mac, your dark storyteller. Tonight I have a tale that will pull you into the shadows. So, turn off the lights, put on your headphones, and let the story take over. But before we begin, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Now sit back and enjoy, if you dare. The Shadow Man. Michael noticed it for the first time on a Wednesday night. He had just turned off his bedside lamp when something in the corner of his room caught his eye. A shape, darker than the surrounding darkness, stood still, blending into the shadows. His heart skipped a beat. He blinked. The shape was gone. Michael let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Probably just a trick of the light, he told himself. The mind played funny games in the dark. He rolled over, pulled the blanket up to his chin, and closed his eyes. Still, sleep didn't come easy. A strange feeling settled over him, like being watched. The sensation crept up his spine, prickling his skin. His mind whispered things he didn't want to hear. What if something was there? What if it was waiting? Michael sat up and turned the lamp back on. The corner was empty. Of course it was. Shaking. His head, he laughed softly at himself and lay back down. He was just tired, that's all. Too many late nights, too much caffeine. He needed rest. And this time he fell asleep. The next night, the shadow was there again. Michael froze in place, his fingers hovering over the light switch. It stood exactly where it had the night before, an ink-black shape darker than the rest of the room. Not moving, not shifting, just there. He reached for his phone and turned on the flashlight. Nothing. Michael exhaled sharply. Maybe his brain was just filling in the gaps. Shadows could look like anything if you stared at them long enough. Still, it took him longer to fall asleep that night. By Friday, Michael wasn't laughing anymore. Because now, the shadow wasn't. Staying in the corner. Each night, it seemed to inch closer. A foot, maybe two. He wasn't sure. It wasn't like he could measure it. But he knew. He felt it. The way it seemed nearer. The way the darkness stretched longer. He started sleeping. With the lamp on, or at least he tried. But somehow, every morning he woke up to find it turned off. He was sure he hadn't done it. He was sure. Saturday night was the worst. Michael had spent the entire day telling himself he was being ridiculous. He even laughed at himself while brushing his teeth. But as he crawled into bed, a thought lingered in the back of his mind. What if he opened his eyes and it was right next to him? He shoved the idea away and rolled onto his side, determined to sleep. But then, a soft creak. Michael's eyes snapped open. His pulse pounded in his ears. He lay still, barely breathing. His mind scrambled for explanations. The house settling. The wind? Then he heard it again. A slow, deliberate step on the wooden floor. His breath caught in his throat. He turned his head slightly, just enough to see the corner of the room. The shadow was closer, much closer. Right at the foot of his bed. Michael's fingers twitched toward the lamp switch. He moved slowly, carefully, his heart hammered against his ribs. Another step. His hand shot out, slamming the lamp on. The room flooded with light. The shadow was gone. Michael sat up, gasping for air. His entire body was trembling. He rubbed his face, his skin cold with sweat. It was a dream. It had to be. Shakily, he reached for his phone to check the time. 3:13 a.m. As he placed it back on the nightstand, he caught a glimpse of something out of the corner of his eye, in the mirror on the closet door. A shadow, still standing, at the foot of his bed, watching, waiting. Michael didn't sleep for the rest of the night. Michael didn't sleep the next night. He wanted to believe it had been a trick of the light, some weird brain glitch, but deep down he knew better. Shadows didn't just move on their own. And they sure as hell didn't show up in mirrors when they weren't there in real life. So he kept the lamp on, sat up in bed, phone clutched in one sweaty hand, staring at the corner where the shadow had stood. Nothing happened. By 4 a.m., exhaustion won. His eyelids grew heavier, his body sinking into the mattress. He told himself it was fine. The lamp was on. The room was bright. Nothing would happen in the light. And then, click. The room went dark. Michael's eyes snapped open. His heart slammed against his ribs. His breath hitched in his throat. The lamp had turned off. He scrambled, hands shaking as he reached for the switch. Flicked it up and down. Nothing. He grabbed his phone and turned on the flashlight, but the moment the beam hit the far corner of the room, the shadow was there. Not in the corner anymore. Closer. A few feet from the bed. Michael sucked in a sharp breath, his body frozen in place. His pulse pounded in his ears. His fingers tightened around the phone. He wanted to move, to run, but he couldn't. Then, in the suffocating silence, he heard it. A soft, slow shift. Like fabric brushing against the air. The shadow moved. Michael squeezed his eyes shut. It's not real. It's not real. It's not real. He felt it before he heard it. The air changed, grew cold, heavy. A creeping, icy sensation prickled the back of his neck, like breath. Close, too close. And then, a whisper, right next to his ear. Michael. A rush of pure terror exploded in his chest. He jerked upright, fumbling for the lamp. His fingers found the switch, twisting, click. Light flooded the room. The shadow was gone. Michael gasped, chest heaving. His skin was ice cold, sweat dripping down his forehead. He ran a shaking hand through his hair. He wasn't crazy. He heard it. Something was in his room. Something knew his name. The next day, Michael didn't leave his apartment. He didn't go to work, didn't eat, didn't turn on the TV. He just sat on his bed, staring at the lamp, terrified that the second he turned it off, the shadow would come back, because it would come back, and next time, it wouldn't just whisper. That night, he forced himself to stay awake again. He kept every light on, even the bathroom, the closet. He double-checked the locks on his windows and doors. Midnight came. A.M. 2 a.m. His body was exhausted. His mind screamed for sleep. Michael's eyelids drooped. Just a second, he told himself, just rest for a second. His breathing slowed. His muscles relaxed. Somewhere in the haze of near sleep, he thought he heard something. Soft, almost gentle, like someone humming a song. No, not humming, whispering. His name. Michael. His eyes snapped open. The lamp was off, and the shadow stood right next to his bed. Michael woke up with a gasp. His chest rose and fell in quick, ragged breaths. His skin was clammy with sweat, his heart hammering against his ribs. He didn't remember falling asleep, but something had woken him up. The room was freezing. The kind of cold that seeped into your bones, that didn't belong in a room with closed windows and a working heater. The air felt wrong, heavy, thick, like it was pressing down on him. And then he noticed it. The lamp was off. Michael's breath caught in his throat. He had left it on. He was sure of it. His fingers twitched toward the switch. He forced himself to move, slow and careful, flicking it up. Nothing. His stomach twisted. The bulb hadn't burned out. The power was still on. The glow from the street lamp outside leaked through the curtains. But somehow, his bedside lamp wasn't working, or worse. Something had turned it off. Michael swallowed hard. He reached for his phone, hands trembling, the screen casting a weak blue glow across the room. And that's when he saw it. The shadow, standing at the foot of his bed. No, not standing. Leaning. As if it had been inches from his face, just moments. Egoin had pulled back the second he woke up. Michael's stomach turned to ice. This wasn't just a shadow in the corner anymore. It wasn't a trick of the light. It wasn't his imagination. It was real, and it was watching him. Michael's body screamed at him to run, to move, to do something, but he couldn't. His limbs felt like lead, his breath locked in his throat. He squeezed his eyes shut. Maybe if he didn't look, it would go away. Maybe this was still just some awful dream. The silence stretched. Then, a sound. Soft. Barely. There. Like fabric shifting. Michael's eyes snapped open. The shadow was closer, right next to the bed. Michael's pulse pounded in his ears. He didn't dare move, didn't dare breathe. The room felt suffocating, the air thick with something wrong, and then the mattress dipped, like something was crawling onto the bed. Michael choked on a gasp. His muscles locked. His fingers clenched the sheet so tightly his knuckles turned white. It was right next to him. He could feel it. The air against his skin shifted, something moving just inches away. A whisper, soft as a breath. Michael. Michael bolted upright, slamming his hand against the lamp switch. Light flooded the room. The shadow was gone. The mattress was still. The air was normal again. Michael scrambled back, pressing himself against the headboard, his breath ragged. His eyes darted around the room, searching, waiting. Nothing, but he knew. He knew. It had been there, and it wasn't going to stop. Michael didn't leave his bed for the rest of the night. He sat with his back against the headboard, knees pulled to his chest, the lamp on full brightness. His body ached with exhaustion, but he would not sleep. Because he knew now. The shadow wasn't just some trick of the light, it wasn't a dream, it was real. And it wasn't just watching him. It was getting closer. By the time the first rays of morning sun crept through his curtains, he almost cried from relief. Because in the daylight, everything felt normal again. No shadows, no whispers, no cold, suffocating air. Just an empty room. But Michael knew better now. It only came at night. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, dread settled in his stomach like a stone. He had to know. He had to see it. So as he got ready for bed, he propped his phone up on his desk. Camera. Facing his bed, he set it to record, making sure it had enough storage to last the night. If something happened, he would have proof. He would know he wasn't crazy. Michael lay down, the phone's tiny red recording light glowing in the darkness. The lamp was on as always. He stared at it for what felt like hours, fighting sleep with everything he had. But at some point, exhaustion won. His eyes drifted shut, and the room fell silent. Morning. Michael jolted awake, his heart already pounding. He grabbed his phone, hands shaking, and stopped the recording. The file was over 6 hours long. Swallowing hard, he skipped ahead, watching the still image of his sleeping body, the room frozen in the dim glow of the lamp. For the first few hours, nothing happened. Then, at 2:53 a.m., the screen flickered. Michael's breath caught in his throat. For a fraction of a second, the image warped. The shadows in the room shifted. Then the closet door, which had been closed all night, was now slightly open. Michael's stomach twisted. He didn't open it. He scrubbed forward in the video, heart pounding. 3:12 a.m., and then the lamp turned off. Just like that. No flicker, no slow dimming. Just off. And in the darkness, the screen was still. For a moment. Then, something moved. A dark figure rising from the foot of his bed. It didn't crawl. It didn't step forward. It simply appeared. And it was leaning over him. Michael's breathing turned shallow. On the screen, his sleeping body lay still, completely unaware, and the shadow loomed, watching, waiting. Then, at 3:13 a.m., the figure did something new. It bent down and moved right next to his ear. The screen glitched, a burst of static. Then, through the distorted pixels, Michael saw something that made his entire body go cold. For the first time, the shadow had a face, and it was looking right at the camera. Michael dropped the phone. His whole body was trembling. His breath came in sharp, shallow gasps. He squeezed his eyes shut. It's not real. It's not real. But the video was still playing. And the last thing he heard before he shut it off, before the screen went black, was a whisper, clear as day. Michael, I see you. Michael sat frozen, his phone still in his hand, the screen black. He couldn't move, couldn't breathe. That face, he had only seen it for a fraction of a second, warped, distorted by static. But it was enough. Dark, hollow, twisted in something that wasn't quite human. And the worst part? It had been staring straight into the camera, straight at him, like it knew he would watch, like it had been waiting for him to see it. Michael sucked in a sharp breath, his chest heaving. His room was still bright with morning light, his lamp still, flicked on. But it didn't feel safe anymore, because last night the shadow had come closer than ever, and next time, it wouldn't just watch. Michael didn't leave his apartment. He didn't eat. He didn't shower. He just sat at his desk, staring at his phone, the video still on pause. He wanted to delete it, but he couldn't, because if he deleted it, he'd have nothing. No proof, and some small, desperate part of him needed to believe that this was real, that he wasn't losing his mind. But that meant watching it again, and Michael wasn't sure he could. His hand shook as he tapped the screen, rewinding to 3:13 a.m. His body tensed. He pressed play. The lamp flicked off. The screen darkened. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, movement. The shadow appeared, rising from the foot of the bed, shifting in that unnatural way, like it wasn't stepping forward but being pulled closer. Michael swallowed hard. He knew what was coming. At 3:13 a.m., the figure bent down, leaned toward his sleeping body. The camera glitched, and for the briefest moment, there it was, a face, not fully formed, flickering. A warped, stretched thing of deep black holes where eyes should be. A mouth, open, smiling, too wide. And then, the eyes moved. Michael felt his stomach drop. The face wasn't just looking at the camera, it was following it, as if it could see him watching right now. The screen glitched again. A blast of static filled the speakers. Then, Michael's own sleeping body jerked. In the video, he flinched in his sleep. His breath hitched, his head turned slightly toward the shadow, like he had felt something there, like he had heard something. Then, clear as day, the whisper. Michael, I see you. Michael's fingers clenched into his desk, his entire body breaking out in a cold sweat. The screen flickered once. Then, the face turned completely toward the camera, and it smiled. Michael slammed the phone down. His heart felt like it was going to explode. His breath came in short, sharp gasps. It wasn't just watching him sleep, it was watching him now. Somewhere in the room, the floor creaked. Michael's head snapped up. His blood ran cold. The closet door, the one that had been closed, was now slightly open, and in the sliver of darkness inside, something moved. Michael didn't sleep. He sat motionless on the edge of his bed, staring at the slightly open closet door, waiting. The morning light had begun to seep through the blinds, but it didn't bring him comfort anymore. The daylight didn't erase what had happened. It didn't undo the recording. It didn't make the shadow disappear. Because now it wasn't just some figure in the dark. It had a face, and it had seen him. By noon, Michael had convinced himself of one thing. He could never sleep in the dark again. He went to the nearest hardware store and bought 3 new lamps. He plugged them in around his room, filling every corner with light. Then he checked the locks on his doors. Twice. Checked the windows, the closet, then checked them again. It didn't matter, because deep down, he already knew. Locks wouldn't keep it out. Lights wouldn't make it leave. The Shadow Man wasn't outside trying to get in. It was already here, and now, it wasn't hiding anymore. That night, the lamps stayed on. Michael sat up in bed, the glow casting sharp edges across the room. He forced himself to stay awake, but exhaustion gnawed at him. His body craved sleep, his mind begged against it. But at some point, he lost the fight. His eyes drifted shut. And for the first time, the shadow man followed him into his dreams. It was the same room, same bed, same warm glow from the lamps, but something was wrong. The light didn't feel real. It felt thin, weak. And there, in the corner, the shadow man stood, watching. Michael's heart pounded. His hands gripped the sheets. And then, the lights flickered. One by one, they went out. Michael turned toward the nearest lamp, scrambling to turn it back on. But his fingers passed right through it. The lamp wasn't real. None of it was. And in the corner, the shadow man moved. It stepped forward, the darkness stretching, its limbs too long, too thin. Michael tried to scream, but his voice wouldn't come. The shadow man reached the foot of his bed, bent down, and whispered, "You can't wake up." Michael's body jerked, his breath caught in his throat, and then the shadow lunged. Michael woke up gasping. The lamps were still on. He was drenched in sweat, his sheets twisted around him, his pulse roared in his ears. It had been a dream. Hadn't it? Then he heard it. A soft, slow creak. Michael turned his head, and his bedroom door was open. Not just open, wide open. His stomach twisted. He had locked it. He had locked everything. But something had come in anyway. And in the hallway, just beyond the doorway, the shadows shifted. Michael clamped a hand over his mouth, forcing himself not to make a sound. His body trembled, because now it wasn't just watching from the corner. It wasn't waiting for the lights to go out. The shadow man wasn't hiding anymore. It was inside. Michael stopped counting the nights. Time didn't feel real anymore. The days blurred together, hours spent in exhausted paranoia, waiting for the sun to set, waiting for the whispering to start, because it always started. No matter how many lights he turned on, no matter how many locks he checked, it always found a way in. The first night, the voice was barely more than a breath against his ear. Michael, soft, gentle, a whisper that slithered into his mind, curling around his thoughts like a cold hand. The next night it spoke. "Michael, let me in." Michael had bolted upright, gasping for air. The door was locked, the lights were on. Nothing was in the room, but the voice had come from inside, right next to him. Now the voice spoke every night, not just once, not just in whispers. It pleaded. "Let me in, Michael. Why won't you let me in? It's so cold out here. Let me in." He covered his ears, blasted music through his headphones, left the TV on full volume. It didn't matter. The voice always got through. "Michael, you're making this harder than it has to be." Michael squeezed his eyes shut, rocking back and forth on his bed. "It's not real. It's not real." Then, something touched him. Cold. Not quite solid. A brush of air against his arm, almost like fingers. Michael screamed, and the voice laughed. Next morning, Michael stared at his reflection in the bathroom mirror. He looked like a corpse. Dark circles beneath bloodshot eyes, his skin pale and slick with sweat. His hands shook as he splashed water on his face. He needed help. He needed to leave. But every time he thought about it, an awful feeling gripped his chest. Like if he left, if he ran, something would follow. That night, Michael didn't try to sleep. He sat on the floor, knees pulled to his chest, every light still burning. But when the clock struck 3 a.m., the whispers began. "Michael," he clenched his jaw, covered his ears. "You can't ignore me forever." He squeezed his eyes shut. "It's not real. I'm already here." Michael shook his head. "Why won't you look at me?" His breath hitched. I just want to see you, Michael. No. And I want you to see me. Michael's stomach twisted. Something was wrong. The voice sounded closer. No longer across the room. No longer from the door. Slowly, with shaking hands, Michael lowered his arms, turned his head, and saw it. The shadow sat right next to him. Not in the corner, not across the room, on the floor beside him, and now it wasn't just whispering, it was smiling. Michael's hands trembled as he typed into the search bar. He hadn't left his apartment in days. He barely ate, barely drank. His body felt like it was running on pure fear, jittery, exhausted, but too scared to stop. The shadow man was getting stronger. He didn't just whisper now. He sat beside Michael, watched him, smiled at him. Michael didn't know how much longer he could take it. So he did the only thing left. He searched for answers. The house had history. Michael had lived here for almost a year, but he had never thought to look it up before. Now he scoured every old news article, every forgotten forum post, and then he found it. A story, buried in the archives dated 30 years ago. Local boy missing, only a shadow remains. Michael's stomach dropped. He clicked the article. The text was faded, the scanned newspaper barely legible, but the story was clear. A boy, Daniel Carter, age 12, had lived in this very apartment. One night, he vanished. No forced entry, no signs of struggle. His parents had tucked him into bed, and the next morning, he was gone. But that wasn't the strangest part, because when the police entered his room, they found something else. His shadow, still on the wall, as if he had been standing there, and then simply ceased to exist. Michael's breath came in short, panicked bursts. The words blurred in front of his eyes. This isn't real. This isn't real. But he knew it was, because as he read, as he uncovered the truth, the room got colder. The air got heavier. And behind him, something shifted. Michael's fingers froze over the keyboard. The temperature plunged. His breath came out in a thin, white mist. He didn't want to turn around, didn't want to look, but he didn't have to. Because then the voice spoke. You found me. Michael's stomach lurched. The presence behind him grew. A weight. A force. Pushing against the air, pressing against his back. Slowly. So slowly. Michael turned his head, and there, standing just inches away, was Daniel. Not a boy. Not anymore. A shadow stretched too tall, too thin. A face, warped, empty, hollow-eyed. And this time, it wasn't just watching. It was grinning. Michael's body locked in place, frozen in pure terror. Then, the voice. Low, soft, almost loving. Now let me in. Michael didn't run this time. He didn't cover his ears. Didn't hide under his blankets. He just stood there, face to face with the thing that had haunted him for weeks. Daniel, or what was left of him. The shadow man was taller than before. Its limbs stretched unnaturally long, its face warped into something that wasn't quite human. But the worst part, the eyes. Dark, hollow, like a void that could swallow him whole. Michael's hands clenched into fists. His breath came in slow, shaky bursts, and then he spoke. Who are you? His voice was hoarse, barely above a whisper. The shadow man tilted its head, a long, unnatural movement like a puppet being pulled by invisible strings. Then it smiled and answered, cold, clear. I was you. And now you are me. Michael's stomach dropped. His mind recoiled. The room blurred. No, that's not possible. The shadow laughed, a dry, hollow sound that scraped against Michael's bones. Then it stepped closer. Michael stumbled, back, his body colliding with the wall. The shadow man didn't stop. It moved forward, slow, deliberate, its form shifting, stretching, merging with the darkness around them. Michael couldn't breathe, couldn't move. The air thickened, pressing against his skin, his lungs, his soul, and then a whisper, soft, gentle, let go. Michael's vision blurred, his mind fogged, the room darkened, and then the lights flickered. For the briefest moment, the shadow man's form wavered, like it wasn't fully real. Michael's breath caught in his throat. It feeds on fear. The thought struck like a lightning bolt. This thing, this shadow, it had been growing, becoming stronger, because he let it, because he was afraid. Michael gritted his teeth, his fingers unclenched, and then he did something he never thought he could. He stepped forward. The shadow man froze. Michael's heart pounded. His body screamed at him to run, but he didn't. Instead, he stared into the hollow, endless eyes and whispered back, "You are nothing." The room shuddered. The air rippled. And for the first time, the shadow man's smile faltered. Michael took another step. "You are not me." The darkness around them twisted. The shadow man's form warped, flickered. The grin stretched unnaturally wide. But now, there was something else in its expression. Something new. Fear. Michael's voice grew stronger. "You don't belong here." The walls shook. The lights flashed, and then the shadow man screamed. A high, piercing wail that shattered through the room, through Michael's skull, through everything. The darkness cracked. The shadow collapsed. And, just like that, it was gone. Michael woke up on the floor. The lamps were still on. The room was still there. And for the first time in weeks, it was empty. No whispers. No shadows. Just silence. Michael let out a slow, shuddering breath. It was over. Wasn't
it?
The apartment was silent. Not the peaceful kind of silence. The kind that comes with the early morning. The distant hum of the world waking up. This was heavy. Thick. The kind of silence that felt wrong. Because something was missing. Michael was gone. The lamps were still on. Their glow painted long, golden streaks across the room, stretching across the unmade bed, the knocked-over chair, the closet door, still shut. But the door to the hallway, it was open, just slightly, a crack of darkness spilling in from the other side, and on the floor, lying face down near the bed, Michael's phone, still recording. The screen flickered. The footage showed an empty room. No movement, no sound, just the soft buzz of static, the gentle hum of electricity in the background. For the first few minutes, nothing happened. Then, a glitch. The video skipped, and suddenly, the bed was empty. One frame, Michael was there, sitting on the edge of the mattress, his head bowed, his hands clenched into fists. The next, he was gone. No struggle, no sound, just gone. The camera kept rolling. For minutes, the room stayed still. The lamps cast long shadows along the walls, stretching toward the floor, shadows that shouldn't have moved. And yet, one did. In the farthest corner, where the old shadow once stood, a new one took its place. It was tall, too tall, motionless, watching. Its shape rippled, as if shifting between two forms, struggling to settle into something human. Then, a whisper, soft, gentle. "Michael." The lamps flickered. The recording glitched, and for the briefest second, the shadow smiled. The video cut to black. The next morning, no one noticed the missing tenant. The landlord knocked twice, assuming Michael had finally moved out. Without warning, neighbors passed by his door, never thinking to look inside. No one called his phone. No one checked his room. By nightfall, the apartment was left untouched, still, silent, waiting. And in the farthest corner of the room, the new shadow remained, watching, listening, waiting for someone new to move in.